I never imagined my childhood best friend would be the one to destroy me online. Kelsey and I grew up inseparable, bonding over shared lunches and whispered promises to protect each other from the bullies who mocked our weight. We were supposed to be different from them. We swore we'd never become the people who hurt us. But people change. In college, Kelsey lost the weight and gained a new personality. Her transformation wasn't just physical. She turned into someone I didn't recognize. Someone who started posting wellness journey content that felt like daggers aimed at people like me. Still, I tried to maintain our friendship, ignoring the subtle digs and concerned comments about my size. Then came our high school reunion. I was so proud of my growing fashion blog, finally feeling confident in my skin. I should have known better. While I was catching up with old classmates, Kelsey was secretly filming me eating, adding cruel commentary before posting it online. The video went viral in our hometown. My phone exploded with messages. My safe space on social media became a war zone of mockery and shame. I stopped blogging, stopped going out, stopped trusting. Now, years later, as my plus-size fashion line takes off and my life transforms, Kelsey wants back in. She claims she's changed, that she's grown. But can I forgive the friend who turned my deepest insecurities into viral entertainment? Before we start this video, buckle up, get ready, and subscribe for a special surprise tomorrow. The dress looked perfect on the mannequin. I traced my fingers along the sequined bodice, admiring how the light caught each crystal, creating a constellation of sparkles against the midnight blue fabric. This was the showcase piece for my upcoming collection, the one that would grace the runway at next week's launch. Who would have thought that Maya Chen, the girl who used to hide in oversized hoodies, would be preparing for her own fashion show? My phone buzzed with another reminder about tonight's high school reunion. I had been avoiding thinking about it, focusing instead on the final preparations for my collection. But now, standing in my studio surrounded by the physical manifestation of my dreams, I couldn't ignore it anymore. 10 years. A decade since I last walked the halls of Riverside High. My blog followers had encouraged me to go, saying it would be the perfect opportunity to show everyone how far I had come. They didn't know the whole story. They didn't know about Kelsey. I picked up my phone, scrolling through the RSVPs on the reunion Facebook page. There she was, Kelsey Martinez, her profile picture showing her at some fitness competition, all toned abs and bright smile. My stomach clenched at the sight. Muscle memory from years of friendship turned sour. The studio door opened, and my assistant Sarah poked her head in. "The photographer is here for the lookbook shots. Should I send her in?" "Give me 5 minutes," I said, quickly closing the Facebook app. "I need to make sure everything is perfect." Sarah lingered in the doorway, her expression concerned. "Are you sure you want to go tonight? We could say there's an emergency with the collection." I shook my head, straightening the dress on the mannequin. "I have to go. I can't hide forever." The truth was, I had been hiding, not in the same way I used to hide in high school, but hiding nonetheless. My blog had become my shield, a carefully curated space where I controlled the narrative. Plus-size fashion, body positivity, self-acceptance. These weren't just buzzwords for me. They were armor. I walked to the full-length mirror in the corner of the studio, studying my reflection. The black wrap dress I had chosen for the reunion hugged my curves in all the right places, a design from my first collection. My hair, once perpetually pulled back in a messy ponytail, now fell in soft waves around my face. I looked successful, confident, everything Kelsey had said I would never be. The memory surfaced unbidden. Senior year, before everything changed, Kelsey and I sprawled on my bedroom floor, sharing a pint of ice cream and making promises about our future. We would go to different colleges but stay best friends forever. We would prove everyone wrong. We would always have each other's backs. "Maya?" Sarah's voice pulled me back to the present. "The photographer really needs to get started." "Coming," I called back, taking one last look in the mirror. I could do this. I had built a successful business, amassed over 500,000 followers, and was about to launch my first major collection. One high school reunion wouldn't break me, but as I walked toward the door, my phone buzzed again. A new post notification from Kelsey. "Can't wait to see all my old friends tonight. High school reunion, bar glow up, shard transformation Tuesday." The hashtags made my skin crawl. Every post of hers was a carefully constructed message about transformation, about leaving the old self behind, about becoming better, as if the people we used to be were somehow lesser. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of photography sessions and last-minute adjustments to the collection. Before I knew it, it was time to head to the reunion. I had chosen to drive myself rather than take a car service, wanting the option to leave early if things got uncomfortable. The school parking lot looked exactly the same, right down to the faded yellow lines marking the spaces. I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, watching other alumni make their way inside. Some faces I recognized, Others had changed too much to place. My phone lit up with a text from my sister Jenny. "You've got this, sis. Remember who you are now." Jenny had been my rock through everything. When Kelsey first started changing, when the friendship began to crumble, when I felt most alone. She was right. I knew who I was now. I grabbed my clutch, checked my lipstick one last time in the rearview mirror, and stepped out of the car. The click of my heels on the asphalt felt like a countdown. Each step brought me closer to facing a past I had worked hard to overcome. The school gymnasium had been transformed with twinkling lights and streamers in our school colors. A banner reading "Welcome Back Class of 2015" hung over the entrance. Music from our senior year played through speakers, creating a surreal time capsule effect. I spotted familiar faces as soon as I walked in. Emma from my AP English class, now a lawyer in Boston. Marcus from the debate team, sporting a beard and wedding ring. They smiled and waved, genuine warmth in their greetings. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. Then I heard her laugh. It hadn't changed in 10 years. Still that same musical sound that used to signal safety and friendship. Now it made my shoulders tense. I turned slowly, knowing what I would see but still unprepared for the reality. Kelsey stood near the punch bowl, surrounded by a small crowd. She looked exactly like her Instagram photos, fit and polished in a red dress that showed off her toned arms. She was gesturing animatedly as she talked, her audience hanging on every word. Our eyes met across the room. For a moment, I saw a flicker of something in her expression, something that reminded me of the girl who used to share her lunch with me when bullies knocked mine to the ground. Then her smile widened, turned predatory. "Maya Chen," she called, out, loud enough to draw attention. "Is that really you?" The way she said it, like she was surprised I would dare to show up, made my skin prickle. But I had practiced for this moment. I had rehearsed my responses in front of my mirror, determined not to let her see me flinch. I lifted my chin and smiled back, channeling the confidence I displayed in my blog videos. "Hello, Kelsey. You look well." She was already moving toward me, arms outstretched as if for a hug. I stepped back slightly, maintaining the distance between us. Her smile faltered for just a second before returning, brighter and more artificial than before. "We have so much to catch up on," she said, her voice sweet, but her eyes calculating. "I've been following your blog. It's so brave of you to put yourself out there like that." The backhanded compliment hung in the air between us. A decade ago, it would have crushed me. Now, I simply raised an eyebrow. "Thank you." My followers seemed to appreciate authentic representation in fashion. Something flashed in her eyes at the word authentic. She reached for her phone, and my stomach dropped. I recognized that gesture, had seen it too many times in college when she would document her journey with carefully angled selfies and inspirational captions. "We should take a picture together," she said, already positioning herself beside me, for old time's sake. I could feel the eyes of our former classmates on us, watching this reunion with varying degrees of interest and understanding. Some knew the story of our falling out. Others only knew what they had seen on social media. As Kelsey raised her phone, I smiled diplomatically, already planning my escape route, but she wasn't aiming for a selfie. Instead, she kept the phone low, angled subtly in my direction as she continued to chat. My heart raced as I realized what she was doing. Some habits never changed. She was documenting, always documenting, but not in the way she wanted me to think. I had seen too many of her Transformation Tuesday posts not to recognize the setup. The question was, what would I do about it? The old Maya would have run away, found a quiet corner to hide and cry, but I wasn't that girl anymore. I had built something real, something meaningful. I had followers who looked up to me, who found strength in my journey. I casually shifted my position, making sure the lighting hit me at my best angle. If Kelsey wanted content, I would give her content. But this time, I would control the narrative. I remember the first time I met Kelsey Martinez. It was 3rd grade, and I was sitting alone at lunch, like always. The other kids had learned early on that the fat girl was an easy target, so they'd made a game of stealing my food or making oinking noises when I ate. That day, I had just unwrapped my sandwich when a girl I'd never seen before plopped down beside me. She was bigger than the other kids, too, wearing a bright purple sweater that strained against her belly. Without saying a word, she opened her lunchbox and took out 2 chocolate pudding cups, sliding one across the table to me. "I'm Kelsey," she said, already peeling back the foil on her pudding. "Want to be best friends?" It was that simple. From that day forward, we were inseparable. 2 outcasts who found shelter in each other. We shared everything: clothes, secrets, dreams, fears. When Tommy Peters called me a whale in 4th grade, Kelsey dumped her milk on his head. When Sarah Williams invited everyone except Kelsey to her birthday party, I spent that Saturday teaching Kelsey how to make friendship bracelets. We created our own world, a safe space where being fat wasn't a curse word. In my bedroom, surrounded by posters of our favorite boy bands, we would talk for hours about what we'd do when we grew up. Kelsey wanted to be a veterinarian. I wanted to design clothes that would make everyone feel beautiful. They don't make cute clothes for girls like us, I remember telling her one night, flipping through a fashion magazine. We were 13, and I had just been turned away from another store where nothing fit. Kelsey squeezed my hand. Then you'll just have to make them yourself, and I'll be your first model. We made a pact that night, pinky swearing that we would always protect each other, that we would never let anyone make us feel ashamed of who we were, that we would grow up and show everyone who had ever made fun of us that they were wrong. High school brought new challenges, but we faced them together. When we couldn't find dresses for the freshman dance, we went to the mall in the next town, over and spent hours trying on everything we could find. We ended up in matching blue dresses from the women's section, but we didn't care. We had each other. Sophomore year, we started our own lunch table. Other kids who didn't quite fit in began joining us. Lisa with her thick glasses and braces. Marcus, who stuttered when he got nervous. We created our own little family of misfits. Junior year was when I first noticed Kelsey starting to change. It was subtle at first. She would skip dessert at lunch, saying she felt full. She started going on walks after school instead of coming over to watch our favorite shows. When I asked her about it, she just shrugged. The doctor said I should try to be more active, she said. It's not a big deal, but it was a big deal. By senior year, Kelsey had lost 20 pounds. She joined the school's walking club and started bringing salads for lunch. Still, she was my Kelsey. She still sat with me at lunch, still came over for weekend sleepovers, still defended me against anyone who dared say anything mean. The last perfect day we had together was the summer before college. We were lying in my backyard, watching clouds drift across the sky. Kelsey had lost another 10 pounds, but she still brought ice cream sandwiches for us to share. Promise me, college won't change us, I said, turning to look at her. Promise we'll always be best friends. Kelsey linked her pinky with mine, just like we used to do when we were kids. I promise. Nothing could ever come between us. I believed her. I believed her with all my heart. We had chosen different colleges. I was staying local, going to the state university to study fashion design. Kelsey had gotten into a school 3 states away for pre-veterinary studies. We promised to text every day, to video chat every weekend, to visit during breaks. The first semester, we kept that promise. Every Sunday night, we would get on video chat and talk for hours. Kelsey told me about her classes, about the campus, gym she had discovered, about her new roommate who was teaching her about nutrition. By Thanksgiving break, when we finally saw each other in person again, Kelsey had lost another 15 pounds. She talked constantly about her workout routine, about the new diet she was trying, about how much better she felt. I tried to be supportive. After all, wasn't I supposed to want my best friend to be happy? But something felt different. The way she looked at me when I suggested getting ice cream like we used to, the way she would make little comments about my food choices. Christmas break was worse. Kelsey had lost even more weight, and now she had a following on social media. She posted daily updates about her wellness journey, complete with before and after photos. The before photos were all of us together from our high school days. I remember sitting in my room, scrolling through her Instagram feed, reading captions like, "So glad I finally took control of my life," and "No more excuses." Each post felt like a personal attack, like she was saying our entire friendship had been nothing but a waiting room before her real life began. When we met for coffee during that break, she spent the entire time talking about her transformation. She had a new word for everything we used to do together. Our movie nights with snacks were now emotional eating. Our shopping trips were enabling bad habits. Our friendship bracelets were coping mechanisms. "You could do it too, Maya," she said, reaching across the table to pat my hand. "I could help you, show you what I've learned." I pulled my hand away. "I'm happy the way I am." She gave me a look I had seen too many times before, but never from her. Pity mixed with disgust. "Are you really, though?" That was the moment I knew I had lost my best friend. The girl who had shared her pudding cup with me in 3rd grade was gone, replaced by someone who saw our shared past as something shameful to overcome. Spring semester, our video chats became less frequent. Her social media presence grew, filled with gym selfies and meal prep photos. She started doing sponsored posts for diet teas and workout programs. Each one felt like another nail in the coffin of our friendship. The last straw came during spring break. Kelsey posted a Transformation Tuesday photo, using a picture of us from junior prom as her before image. The caption read, "Sometimes you have to leave people behind to move forward. Don't let anyone anyone hold you back from becoming your best self. I spent hours crying in my dorm room, reading and rereading those words. Jenny, my sister, drove 3 hours to comfort me, bringing my favorite takeout and letting me sob on her shoulder. She doesn't deserve your tears, Jenny told me, stroking my hair. The real Kelsey died a long time ago. She was right, but it still hurt. 15 years of friendship, of shared secrets and inside jokes, of protecting each other against the world, all reduced to a cautionary tale on Instagram. I unfollowed Kelsey that night, blocked her number, removed her from my social media accounts. It was like amputating a part of myself, but I knew it was necessary. I couldn't keep watching her transform our friendship into content for her wellness brand. The next 2 years of college passed in a blur. I threw myself into my studies, into developing my own style, into learning to love myself without Kelsey's validation. I started my fashion blog, at first just posting outfit ideas for plus-size women who felt ignored by mainstream fashion. Slowly, I built a following of my own. Women who appreciated seeing someone who looked like them wearing beautiful clothes, who understood that health and happiness come in all sizes, who shared their own stories of friendship and betrayal, of learning to love themselves in a world that told them they shouldn't. But sitting here now, at our high school reunion, looking at Kelsey with her phone pointed at me, I realize some wounds never fully heal. They just scab over, waiting for someone to pick at them again. The difference is, this time I'm ready. This time, I know who I am. This time, I won't let anyone make me feel ashamed of my body or my journey. Not even the girl who once promised to protect me from exactly this kind of hurt. The first sign that Kelsey had truly changed came during winter break of our freshman year of college. I was scrolling through Instagram late one night when her post stopped me cold. There she was, standing in a gym mirror, wearing tight workout clothes I had never seen before. The caption read, "Down 30 pounds and just getting started. Finally taking control of my life." My thumb hovered over the like button, but something held me back. It wasn't just the physical transformation that jarred me. It was the way she phrased it, taking control, as if all our years together had been out of control, as if who we were before was wrong. I typed and deleted 5 different comments before settling on a simple heart emoji. Within minutes, she responded with a private message. "Thanks, babe. You should come work out with me while I'm home. I can show you everything I've learned." The old familiar shame crept in. I had gained the freshman 15 while she had been losing weight. Our weekly video chats had become more sporadic, filled with her excited chatter about her new gym routine and meal plans. I always ended those calls feeling slightly worse about myself. Still, I agreed to meet her at the gym. That was my first mistake. Kelsey was already there when I arrived, bouncing on her toes in designer workout gear. She hugged me quickly, then pulled back to look me up and down. "Oh, sweetie, we really need to do something about those clothes. You can't work out in that." I looked down at my comfortable t-shirt and leggings, the same ones I had worn to our high school PE classes. "What's wrong with them? They're not motivating," she said, leading me toward the treadmills. "When you dress for success, you're more likely to achieve it. I'll send you some links to the brands I use." The next hour was torture. Kelsey pushed me through a workout routine that left me gasping and humiliated. Every time I had to stop or slow down, she would make little encouraging noises that felt more like judgment. "Don't worry, we all start somewhere. You'll get better if you really commit." By the time we finished, I was ready to never see the inside of a gym again. But Kelsey wasn't done. She insisted on taking progress photos, positioning me in front of a mirror while I tried not to cry. "These are just for us," she assured me, snapping away with her phone, "so we can track your journey together." Later that night, I saw the photos on her Instagram story. "Starting a fitness journey with my bestie," the caption read. So proud of her for taking the first step. The comments poured in, all praising Kelsey for being such a good friend, for helping me see the light. None of them knew me. None of them cared that I hadn't agreed to be part of her content. I was just another before photo in her transformation story. I messaged her immediately. "Please take those down. I didn't say you could post them." Her response came hours later. "Don't be embarrassed. Everyone starts somewhere. I'm just trying to help motivate you." The photos stayed up until they expired naturally after 24 hours. I never went to the gym with her again. Spring semester brought a new level of distance between us. Kelsey's social media presence grew exponentially. She started collaborating with fitness influencers, promoting protein powders and waist trainers. Her captions became increasingly focused on overcoming her past self. "Remember that girl who used to hide behind baggy clothes and make excuses? She's gone forever. The new me doesn't let anything hold her back." Each post felt like a direct attack on who we used to be, on who I still was. The photos of us from high school began appearing more frequently, always as before images in her transformation posts. Our friendship, once so sacred and private, became content for her growing audience. The comments under these posts were the worst part. People praising her for escaping her old life, congratulating her for no longer being like me. Some would even tag me, asking when I was going to follow. Her example, I started muting her posts, but mutual friends would send me screenshots, thinking they were helping. Have you seen what Kelsey posted? Are you okay? One post in particular broke me. It was a photo from our senior prom, both of us smiling in our blue dresses. Next to it was a current photo of Kelsey in a similar dress, now several sizes smaller. The caption read, "The biggest weight I lost wasn't on the scale. It was the mental weight of settling for less than I deserved." Sometimes you have to let go of who you were to become who you're meant to be. I called her that night, something I hadn't done in months. She answered on the fourth ring, sounding distracted. "Maya, I'm actually about to film a workout video. Can I call you back?" "Why are you doing this?" My voice cracked. "Why are you using our friendship as some kind of cautionary tale?" "What? I'm not doing that at all. I'm just sharing my journey. My followers find it inspiring." "Inspiring? You're literally using our memories to show people what not to be." She sighed, the sound crackling through the phone. "You're taking this too personally. This isn't about you, it's about my growth. I would think, as my best friend, you'd be happy for me." "Happy for you? You're publicly shaming everything we ever were together." "I'm not shaming anyone. I'm just being honest about my transformation. Maybe if you're feeling attacked, you should ask yourself why." The conversation devolved from there. Every point I tried to make was turned back on me, twisted into evidence of my own insecurities. By the end, I was crying, and she was telling me that this reaction just proved she was right about needing to move forward. The next day, she posted about dealing with toxic people who try to hold you back from your goals. Her followers flooded the comments with support, telling her to cut out anyone who didn't support her journey. That was when I finally unfollowed her. I couldn't watch her turn our friendship into a villain origin story anymore, but the damage was already done. Every time I looked in the mirror, I heard her voice. Every time I posted on my own social media, I braced for her comments about enabling unhealthy behaviors. The final straw came during spring break of sophomore year. A mutual friend forwarded me a video Kelsey had posted. In it, she was talking about friendship breakups while doing squats in her campus gym. Sometimes the hardest part of a wellness journey is realizing that some friends are like old clothes that don't fit anymore. You have to be willing to clean out your closet to make room for better things. She never mentioned me by name, but everyone who knew us understood who she was talking about. The comments were filled with people sharing their own stories of leaving behind friends who refused to grow. I blocked her that night on every platform, changed my phone number, told our mutual friends I didn't want to hear about her anymore. It was like cutting off a limb, but I knew it was necessary for my survival. The next few years, I focused on building my own life. My fashion blog slowly gained traction, especially after I started specifically addressing the intersection of fashion and body positivity. I wrote about my experiences, about learning to love myself in a world that profited from my self-hatred, but I never wrote about Kelsey. That wound was still too raw, too personal to share. Even when followers asked about losing friends during their own journeys of self-acceptance, I kept my advice general. Some betrayals are too intimate to turn into content. Now, watching her film me at the reunion, I realized she never learned that lesson. To her, every relationship, every interaction, every moment is potential content for her brand. Even now, 10 years later, she's still trying to use me as a prop in her story. But this time, I won't let her. I saw the notification pop up on my phone during the reunion. A new Instagram story from Kelsey, posted just minutes after our interaction. My hands trembled as I opened it, already knowing what I would find. The video started with a covert shot of me at the refreshment table, carefully angled to make me look larger than I was. Kelsey's voice narrated over the footage. "Look who I ran into at my high school reunion. Remember when I told you guys about my friend who inspired my fitness journey? Well, some people choose to stay exactly where they are." The next clip showed me taking a bite of cake, slowed down and zoomed in. Kelsey had added a sad face emoji and the text, "This is why I had to distance myself. You can't help someone who won't help themselves." My phone started buzzing with messages, first from my sister Jenny, then from my assistant Sarah, then from followers who recognized me. The video was spreading fast, being shared in fitness and wellness groups as another example of Kelsey's inspiring transformation story. I rushed to the bathroom, locking myself in a stall as the messages continued to pour in. Some were supportive, outraged on my behalf. Others were cruel, agreeing with Kelsey that I was a cautionary tale. A few were from people at the reunion who had witnessed the whole thing, expressing their shock at Kelsey's behavior. Through the bathroom door, I could hear people talking about the video. Did you see what Kelsey posted? I can't believe she did that to Maya. Should someone check on her? My phone rang. Jenny's face appeared on the screen. I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. She did it again. I saw, Jenny said, her voice tight with anger. That manipulative, narcissistic, fame-hungry witch. Do you want me to drive down there? I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. No, I need to handle this myself. Maya, you don't have to stay there. You don't owe anyone an appearance. Get in your car and come to my house. We'll order pizza and watch bad movies like we used to. The offer was tempting, so tempting. But running away would only make things worse. If I leave now, she wins. She gets to control the narrative again. A knock on the bathroom stall interrupted me. Maya, are you in there? It was Emma from my old AP English class. I have to go, I told Jenny. I'll call you later. I opened the stall door to find Emma waiting with a concerned expression. I reported the video for harassment, she said. So did half the people here. It's disgusting what she did. More women had gathered in the bathroom, all looking at me with sympathy. Lisa from our old lunch table spoke up. We all saw what really happened. How she set you up. We're not letting her get away with it this time. Their support should have made me feel better, but instead, I felt exposed, raw. Every person in that bathroom had seen me being humiliated, had watched as my former best friend turned me into viral content for her wellness brand. My phone buzzed again. The video had been taken down for violating community guidelines, but the damage was already done. Screenshots were circulating. People were discussing it in comment sections and group chats. She's live streaming now, someone said, holding up their phone, making excuses about how she was just trying to help, how she's worried about your health. I straightened my spine, checked my makeup in the mirror. Then I guess it's time to tell my side of the story. The women in the bathroom formed a protective circle around me as I walked back into the gymnasium. Kelsey was still there, phone in hand, talking to her live audience about tough love and real friendship. She saw me approaching and her eyes lit up with predatory anticipation. Another chance for content, more engagement for her channel. She angled her phone to capture my approach. Maya, I'm so glad you're still here, she said, her voice syrupy sweet. I was just telling my followers about our journey together. Our journey? I kept my voice level, aware that she was still recording. You mean how you've spent years using our friendship as material for your content? How you just filmed me without my consent and posted it to humiliate me? Her smile faltered slightly. I would never want to humiliate you. I care about you. That's why I share these moments to inspire others. To inspire them to what? To betray their friends? To turn private moments into public spectacle? To shame people they claim to love? The crowd at the reunion had grown silent, watching our confrontation. Kelsey's phone was still recording, broadcasting everything to her followers. You're twisting. This, she said, her wellness guru mask slipping slightly. Everything I do comes from a place of love. I laughed, and the sound was bitter even to my own ears. Love? Was it love when you posted our prom photos to brag about how much better you are now? Was it love when you told your followers that I was toxic because I didn't want you using my image without permission? Is it love now? Filming me without my consent? I'm just sharing my truth, she insisted, but her hand holding the phone had started to shake. No, you're sharing my truth without my permission. You're turning our friendship into content. You're using my body, my life, my existence as a before photo in your transformation story. The gymnasium had become so quiet, you could hear the hum of the air conditioning. Every person was watching, including Kelsey's thousands of followers through her phone. I have built a successful business, I continued, my voice growing stronger. I have followers who appreciate me for who I am, not who they think I should be. I have a fashion line launching next week that celebrates bodies like mine. I am happy, Kelsey, truly happy. And you can't stand that, can you? You can't stand that I succeeded without changing everything about myself. Kelsey's face had gone pale. This wasn't the confrontation she had planned to film. This wasn't content she could easily edit and manipulate. I think you should turn off your phone now, Emma said, stepping forward. unless you want us all to start sharing our stories about what really happened in high school, about who you were before you became this person." Other classmates murmured in agreement. Lisa pulled out her own phone. "I have screenshots of every nasty comment you've made about Maya over the years. Every time you used her as content without permission. Should we talk about that?" Kelsey's hand dropped, the live stream ending abruptly. For a moment, she looked like the girl I used to know, vulnerable and uncertain. Then her walls slammed back up. "You're all just jealous," she snapped. "I worked hard to change my life, to become better. If you want to stay stuck in the past, that's your choice." "The past?" I stepped closer to her. "You mean like how you're stuck living in it? Constantly posting about who you used to be, using our old photos, our old friendship to prove how far you've come? I'm not the one stuck in the past, Kelsey. I'm not the one who needs to keep reliving high school to prove my worth." She flinched as if I'd slapped her. Around us, people had started to pull out their phones, recording our confrontation. The why. Tables had turned. Now she was the one being watched, being documented without her consent. "This isn't fair," she said, her voice small. "No, it's not fair. It wasn't fair when you did it to me either. The difference is, I'm not going to post this. I'm not going to turn your humiliation into content, because that's not what friends do, even former ones." I turned to leave, but stopped and looked back at her one last time. "I hope your followers were watching, Kelsey. I hope they saw what inspiration really looks like." As I walked out of the gymnasium, people started to applaud, not just for me, but for everyone who had ever been used as someone else's before photo. Everyone who had ever had their story stolen and twisted for someone else's content. My phone was still buzzing with notifications, but they were different now. Messages of support, of solidarity, comments from my followers saying they were proud of me for standing up to her, texts from Jenny saying she had recorded the live stream and had proof of everything. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and finally let myself cry. Not from sadness or humiliation, but from relief. After all these years, I had finally reclaimed my story from her. I had finally stood up to the person who had taught me to hate myself. Tomorrow, there would be fallout to deal with, screenshots to report, comments to moderate, statements to make. But tonight, I had won something more valuable than any social media victory. I had proven to myself that I was stronger than her attempts to shame me. I started my car, ready to drive home, when my phone lit up with one last notification. Kelsey had posted again, a tearful apology video claiming she had learned and grown from this experience. She was already trying to turn this into content too. I deleted the notification without watching it. She could tell whatever story she wanted now. I knew my truth, and that was enough. The aftermath of the reunion hit harder than I expected. Despite deleting my social media apps, notifications kept popping up through text messages and emails. My phone became a constant reminder of what had happened, each buzz making my stomach clench with anxiety. Sarah, my assistant, tried to handle the worst of it. She filtered my emails, monitored my social accounts, and kept me updated only on what was absolutely necessary. But even she couldn't shield me from everything. Kelsey's video, though taken down quickly, had spawned dozens of reaction videos and commentary posts. Some wellness influencers sided with her, using my image to discuss enabling and tough love. Others defended me, turning our confrontation into a conversation about consent and body shaming. I stopped going to my studio. The thought of designing clothes, of putting myself out there for public consumption, became overwhelming. My upcoming fashion line launch loomed over me like a dark cloud. How could I stand in front of cameras and critics when all I wanted was to disappear? Jenny moved in temporarily, claiming she needed a break from her own apartment. I knew she was really there to make sure I ate, slept, and occasionally left my bedroom. She would sit with me during the worst moments, when social media clips of the reunion would surface and trigger fresh waves of anxiety. "You know what the worst part is?" I told her one night, curled up on my couch with a pint of ice cream we were sharing. "I keep thinking about how young we were when this all started. How many teenage girls are watching her content right now, learning to hate themselves the way she taught me to hate myself." Jenny took the ice cream from me and scooped out another bite. "Then maybe that's what you need to focus on. Not hiding, but showing them there's another way." But I couldn't face it yet. The fashion line launch was postponed indefinitely. My blog went dark. I stopped responding to business emails. Each day became a struggle just to exist in my own skin, to not let Kelsey's voice in my head convince me I was worthless. The depression came in waves. Some days I could almost convince myself I was okay, that this would pass. Other days, I couldn't get out of bed, replaying every moment of public humiliation on an endless loop in my mind. My therapist, Dr. Rodriguez, squeezed me in for emergency sessions. "What you're experiencing is a trauma response," she explained. "Your oldest friendship, your safe person, became your biggest source of pain. That's not something you just bounce back from. She was right. Kelsey hadn't just betrayed our friendship that night. She had confirmed every fear, every insecurity she had spent years planting in my mind. Every time she had used our history as content, every backhanded comment about my weight, every concerned message about my health had been leading to this moment of public shame. The lowest point came about 3 weeks after the reunion. I was scrolling through old photos on my phone, torturing myself with memories, when I found one from our last summer before college. Kelsey and I were at the beach, both in swimsuits, both smiling without shame or self-consciousness. We looked so young, so unaware of how everything would change. I broke down completely. Jenny found me sobbing on my bedroom floor, clutching my phone to my chest. "I want her back," I kept saying. "I want my friend back." Jenny held me while I cried, stroking my hair like our mother used to do when we were small. "That friend is gone," she said gently. "She's been gone for a long time. You've just been holding on to her ghost." The truth of those words hit me hard. I had been mourning Kelsey for years, grieving the loss of a friendship that had died long before the reunion. She had chosen her path, chosen to turn our shared history into content for strangers, chosen to value likes and followers over genuine connection. But I had chosen too. I had chosen to build a business celebrating body diversity. I had chosen to create spaces where people felt safe and valued. I had chosen to love myself exactly as I was. The next morning, I called Sarah. "I need you to set up a meeting with the production team," I said. "The fashion line launch is back on." She was silent for a moment. "Are you sure? There's no rush. We can wait until things calm down." "No, we're not waiting. Kelsey turned our friendship into content about shame and transformation. I'm going to turn it into something better." The following weeks were a blur of activity. I threw myself back into work, but with a new purpose. Each design became a statement not just about fashion, but about resilience, about choosing yourself when others try to shame you into changing. I started writing again too. Not just fashion blog posts, but honest essays about friendship, betrayal, and healing, about growing up in a world that profits from your self-hatred, about learning to love yourself when your best friend teaches you not to. The first essay went viral, not because of Kelsey's followers or reunion drama, but because it touched something real in people. Women started sharing their own stories of friendship breakups, of body shaming disguised as concern, of learning to trust themselves again. My inbox filled with messages from young girls thanking me for giving them permission to exist in their bodies without apology, from women who had lost friends to the wellness industry's toxic messaging, from people who had been someone's before photo without their consent. Dr. Rodriguez helped me process each message, each story. "You're turning your pain into purpose," she said. "But remember to protect yourself too. You don't owe anyone your trauma." She was right, but sharing felt different now. It wasn't about Kelsey anymore. It wasn't about proving anything to her or her followers. It was about creating the safe space I had needed when I was younger, when my best friend first started teaching me to hate myself. The depression didn't magically disappear. There were still bad days, still moments when seeing myself through Kelsey's lens would trigger waves of shame and anxiety. But those moments became less frequent, less overwhelming. Jenny stayed with me through all of it, her presence a constant reminder that not all friendships turn toxic, that some people love you exactly as you are, without trying to fix or change you. "Remember when we were kids," she said one evening, "and you used to design clothes for my dolls? You never once made them feel bad about their plastic bodies. You just made them feel beautiful." I laughed, but there were tears in my eyes. "Yeah, well, dolls are easier than real people." "Maybe," she said, squeezing my hand, "but you've always had this gift for seeing beauty where others see flaws. Don't let her take that away from you." Slowly, my world began to expand again. I returned to my studio, surrounded myself with fabric and designs and possibilities. The fashion line evolved, incorporating elements of healing and transformation that had nothing to do with size or shape. Sarah helped me hire a social media team to manage my accounts, creating boundaries I should have set years ago. We implemented strict policies about consent and image sharing. Every model for my line would have full control over how their photos were used. The anxiety didn't disappear completely. Sometimes I would still wake up in a cold sweat, remembering the feeling of being filmed without consent, of being turned into content against my will. But those moments no longer paralyzed me. Instead, they fueled me. Each design became an act of defiance, each blog post a reclamation of my story, each day a choice to exist unapologetically in a world that Kelsey and people like her tried to make too small for bodies like mine. The fashion line launch date approached again, but this time I was ready. Not because I had overcome everything, but because I had stopped waiting to be completely healed before living my life. You know, she'll probably try to make this about her too, Jenny warned as we finalized the launch details. Turn your success into content for her redemption arc. I nodded, but for the first time, the thought didn't terrify me. Let her try. This isn't her story anymore. It's mine, and it was true. Whatever content Kelsey created, whatever narrative she spun, she couldn't touch the real story. The story of a girl who lost her best friend but found herself, who turned betrayal into beauty, who learned that sometimes the happiest endings don't involve reconciliation, but recognition of your own worth. That story belonged to me, and I was finally ready to tell it on my own terms. I was scrolling through Instagram mindlessly when my sister's message changed everything. Look at the comments on your latest post, Jenny wrote. People are defending you. At first, I didn't understand. I hadn't posted anything since the reunion disaster. But when I opened my profile, I saw hundreds of new comments flooding my last fashion blog post from weeks ago. They were responding to screenshots someone had shared from Kelsey's live stream, but not in the way I expected. This is what real success looks like, one comment read. Building others up instead of tearing them down. Another, I used to follow Kelsey, but watching how she treated her best friend opened my eyes to the toxicity of transformation content. The supportive messages kept coming, not just on my posts, but across all my social media platforms. Women sharing their own stories of friendship betrayals, of body shaming disguised as concern, of learning to love themselves despite the wellness industry's constant messaging that they needed to change. I sat on my bed, reading comment after comment through tears. Jenny called me, her voice excited. Have you seen what Lisa posted? Lisa, our old friend from the high school lunch table, had shared a lengthy post about witnessing the evolution of Kelsey's behavior over the years. She included screenshots of the cruel comments Kelsey had made about me, the times she had used our photos without permission, the gradual transformation of our friendship into content fodder. The girl I knew in high school would be ashamed of who she became, Lisa wrote. Maya was her defender, her safe space, her constant support, and she turned that friendship into a weapon. The post was going viral in our hometown circles. More former classmates started sharing their own memories, painting a picture very different from the narrative Kelsey had crafted for her followers. My phone rang again. It was Dr. Rodriguez, my therapist. I saw what's happening online. Adam, how are you handling it? I took a deep breath, considering the question. I feel seen, I finally answered. For the first time in years, I feel like people are seeing the truth. That's powerful, she said. But remember, viral support can be as overwhelming as viral criticism. What do you need right now? The question made me pause. What did I need? Not more social media attention, not revenge, not even validation from strangers online. I need to reclaim my story, I said slowly, not just from Kelsey, but from everyone who thinks they know what happened between us. Dr. Rodriguez's voice softened. That sounds like a breakthrough. How do you want to do that? I glanced at my sketchbook, filled with designs I had been too afraid to share since the reunion. By doing what I do best, by creating something beautiful from this pain. That evening, I called an emergency meeting with my team. Sarah, my assistant, brought coffee and pastries. My design team gathered around the conference table, notebooks ready. The fashion line launch isn't just about clothes anymore, told them. It's about reclaiming narratives, about turning pain into power, about choosing yourself when others try to shame you into changing. We worked through the night, reimagining the entire collection. Each piece would tell a story of resilience. The colors would represent healing, growth, and self-acceptance. The designs would celebrate bodies of all sizes without apology or explanation. Jenny watched from the corner, smiling as I sketched and directed and planned. This is the sister I remember, she said during a break. The one who used to design superhero costumes for me when kids made fun of my glasses. The memory made me laugh. You were my first model. And now look at you, building an empire based on making people feel powerful. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. We photographed the collection on models of all sizes, ages, and backgrounds. Each model shared their own story of overcoming shame or betrayal. Their experiences became part of the campaign, woven into the fabric of what we were creating. Dr. Rodriguez helped me process each step, ensuring I wasn't just running from my pain, but transforming it. Creation can be healing, she reminded me, but make sure you're creating for yourself, not in response to Kelsey. She was right. This wasn't about proving anything to Kelsey or her followers. It was about proving something to myself, that I could take the worst betrayal of my life and turn it into something meaningful. The breakthrough came during a particularly intense therapy session. What would you tell that young girl? Dr. Rodriguez Rodriguez asked. The one who first started to believe she needed to change to be worthy of friendship? The question broke something open inside me. I thought about all the young girls following influencers like Kelsey, learning to hate themselves one transformation post at a time. I would tell her she deserves friends who love her exactly as she is, I said through tears. That true friendship builds you up. It doesn't tear you down to build a better version of you. That became the theme of our campaign. Not just body positivity or fashion inclusivity, but genuine self-acceptance. Each piece in the collection would come with a note sharing a story of healing, of choosing yourself, of finding beauty in exactly who you are. The supportive comments continued to flood my social media, but I wasn't checking them as obsessively anymore. Sarah hired a team to manage our accounts, implementing strict policies about consent and image sharing. No one's photo will ever be used without explicit permission, she assured me. No one's story will be twisted into content they didn't approve. It felt like drawing a line in the sand, like saying, this is how we do things differently. This is how we break the cycle of exploitation and shame. Jenny moved back to her own apartment, but she called every day to check on me. You know what I'm proudest of? She said one evening. You're not just surviving this. You're showing others how to survive it too. She was right. Every design decision, every campaign choice, every story we shared was a roadmap for others walking this path. A guide to rebuilding yourself after someone tries to break you down. Dr. Rodriguez noticed the change in our sessions. You're not talking about Kelsey as much, she observed. Your focus has shifted because it's not about her anymore, I realized. It's about all of us who've been someone's before photo, who've had our stories stolen and twisted, who've had to learn to love ourselves despite it all. The collection was nearly ready for launch when Lisa sent me another message. Kelsey had posted a new video, apparently inspired by the upcoming release of my line. Don't watch it, Jenny advised. It's just more content for her platform. But I did watch it. I watched as Kelsey cried about growth and learning and wanting to make amends. I watched as she tried to turn my success into content for her redemption arc. And for the first time, I felt nothing but pity. She was still stuck in the cycle of performing her life for strangers, still turning every experience into content, still unable to exist without an audience validating her worth. I closed the video without commenting. Let her tell whatever story she needed to tell. My story was finally my own again, and I was telling it through every stitch, every design, every model who stood proudly in front of our cameras. The real healing wasn't in confrontation or viral support, or even public vindication. It was in creating something meaningful from the ashes of what was destroyed, in choosing to build rather than break, in helping others find their way back to self-love. That night, I added one final design to the collection, a simple dress, comfortable and elegant, with a note that read, for the girl who needs to remember that she is enough, exactly as she is. No transformation required. The morning I decided to return to my fashion blog, my hands trembled over the keyboard. The cursor blinked at me, waiting for words I had been too afraid to write since the reunion, but something had shifted inside me. The paralyzing fear had transformed into a quiet determination. My first post back was simple. Fashion isn't about transformation. It's about celebration. I attached a photo of myself in one of my new designs, smiling genuinely at the camera. No filters, no flattering angles, just me in a dress I had created to make people feel beautiful. Within hours, the post exploded, not because of drama or controversy, but because it resonated with something real. Women flooded the comments with their own stories of learning to celebrate their bodies rather than trying to transform them. Sarah, monitoring our social media, called me excitedly. This is different from before, she said. People aren't just talking about the reunion anymore. They're connecting with your message. She was right. Each comment felt like a conversation, not just engagement. Women sharing their journeys, their struggles, their victories. My blog became a space for genuine connection, far removed from the performative world of transformation posts and before and after photos. The next post featured sketches from my upcoming collection, each design accompanied by the story that inspired it. I wrote about the dress inspired by my teenage years, when clothes were weapons used against me, about the blazer designed for women who had been told to shrink themselves, about the evening wear that celebrated curves instead of hiding them. My follower count grew steadily, but it felt different from before. These weren't people looking for drama or transformation content. They were finding something they desperately needed, permission to exist exactly as they were. Jenny noticed the change in me during our weekly sister dinners. You're glowing, she said one evening, and not just because of that highlighter you're always raving about. I laughed, but she was right. The joy of creating, of connecting, of helping others had brought color back to my world. Each blog post felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that Kelsey had tried to turn into content. The breakthrough came when I decided to write about friendship. Not about Kelsey specifically, but about the complex relationship between female friendship and body image. About how we learn to see ourselves through our friends' eyes. About the damage that occurs when those eyes turn critical. That post went viral in a way none of my fashion content ever had. Women shared it with their friends, their daughters, their support groups. It sparked conversations about toxic friendship dynamics and the wellness industry's role in destroying female relationships. My inbox filled with messages from women who had lost friends to the fitness influencer world, who had watched their closest confidants transform into critics, who had been tagged in transformation posts without their consent. Dr. Rodriguez helped me process each message, each story. "You're creating a space for collective healing," she said during one of our sessions. "But remember to maintain your own boundaries." She was right. It would be easy to lose myself in other people's stories, to become so focused on helping others that I forgot to protect myself. But this time, I was wiser. I had learned the hard way about the importance of boundaries. Sarah helped me implement a content schedule that balanced vulnerability with privacy. We shared design inspiration, behind the scenes glimpses of the collection, and thoughtful discussions about fashion and self-acceptance. But my personal life, my ongoing healing journey, remained mostly private. The blog evolved into something bigger than fashion. It became a platform for discussing the intersection of friendship, body image, and self-worth. Each post sparked meaningful conversations about how we treat ourselves and each other. One morning, I received an email from a teenage girl that brought me to tears. She wrote about finding my blog after her best friend started posting transformation content that made her feel ashamed of her body. "Your posts helped me realize I deserve friends who love me as I am," she wrote. "I don't need to transform to be worthy of friendship." I printed her email and pinned it to my inspiration board at the studio. It reminded me why this work mattered, why turning my pain into purpose was so important. The fashion community started to take notice too. Major magazines reached out for interviews, wanting to discuss the intersection of fashion and friendship. Industry leaders praised our commitment to genuine inclusivity and ethical content creation. But the most meaningful recognition came from within our community. Women started sharing photos of themselves in my designs, each image accompanied by their own stories of reclaiming their relationship with their bodies and their friends. Jenny suggested we create a hashtag to collect these stories. Friendship over fitness became a movement, a space for women to discuss the impact of toxic wellness culture on their relationships. Dr. Rodriguez warned me to be careful about becoming too invested in the movement. "Your healing shouldn't depend on helping others heal," she reminded me. But this felt different from my previous online presence. I wasn't seeking validation or trying to prove anything. I was simply creating space for conversations that needed to happen. The blog's success translated into growing anticipation for the fashion line. Each preview we shared generated thoughtful discussions about representation, consent, and celebration of diversity. Sarah reported that our engagement metrics were higher than ever, but the quality of interaction had completely transformed. Gone were the toxic comments and body shaming. Instead, our community fostered genuine support and understanding. Even my old high school friends noticed the change. Lisa messaged me about the impact my blog was having in our hometown. "You're changing the conversation," she wrote, "making people think twice about how they talk about bodies and friendship." The night before launching a particularly vulnerable post about friendship betrayal, I called Jenny in a moment of panic. What if she uses this against me too? What if she turns it into more content? Jenny's response was firm. "Then she proves exactly why this conversation needs to happen. But Maya, you're not writing for her anymore. You're writing for everyone who needs to hear this." She was right. Each post, each design, each story we shared was a step further away from Kelsey's influence. I was no longer reacting to her content or trying to counter her narrative. I was creating something entirely new. The blog became a testament to the power of choosing celebration over transformation, of valuing friendship over fitness goals, of creating content that builds people up instead of tearing them down. One evening, reviewing the latest comments on my blog, I realized something profound. The pain of Kelsey's betrayal had led me to create exactly what I needed when our friendship first started to unravel, a space where women could exist without shame, where friendship meant acceptance rather than transformation, where fashion celebrated bodies instead of trying to change them. My voice had grown stronger with each post. My designs had become more confident, more unapologetically celebratory. The blog wasn't just a platform anymore. It was proof that sometimes the most powerful response to betrayal is creation. Dr. Rodriguez noted this shift in our sessions. "You're not just surviving anymore," she observed. "You're thriving in a way that helps others thrive too." She was right. Each blog post felt like planting a seed of self-acceptance. Each design felt like armor for someone else's battle. Each story we shared felt like a hand reaching out to someone who needed it. The blog had become everything Kelsey's content wasn't. Authentic, supportive, and focused on celebration rather than transformation. It was a daily reminder that friendship should lift you up, not tear you down to rebuild you in someone else's image. And in creating this space for others, I had finally found my own place to heal. The fashion line launch date loomed closer, and my studio buzzed with nervous energy. Racks of clothing lined the walls, each piece telling its own story of resilience and celebration. The collection had evolved far beyond my initial vision, becoming a testament to every woman who had ever been made to feel less than worthy. Sarah coordinated with the PR team, organizing the launch event details. We had chosen an inclusive venue, ensuring accessibility for all body types. The guest list included fashion industry leaders, body positivity advocates, and most importantly, members of our blog community who had been part of this journey. "The RSVPs are overwhelming," Sarah reported, scrolling through her tablet. "We might need a bigger space." I ran my hands over a sequined evening gown, one of my favorite pieces. The fabric sparkled under the studio lights, designed to draw attention rather than hide. "We stick with the original venue," I decided. "I want this to feel intimate, meaningful." Jenny arrived with lunch, finding me lost in final adjustments to a blazer's fit. "You're stress sewing again," she observed, setting down the takeout bags. "These pieces need to be perfect," I said, checking the seams for the 100th time. "They're not just clothes, they're statements." The collection represented everything I had learned about healing and self-worth. Each design incorporated elements of strength and vulnerability, celebration, and defiance. The size range was extensive, ensuring no one would feel excluded or afterthought. Our marketing campaign focused on the stories behind the designs. Instead of traditional fashion photography, we featured real women wearing the clothes while sharing their experiences of friendship, betrayal, and self-discovery. Lisa had introduced me to a photographer who specialized in capturing authentic moments rather than posed perfection. Together, we created images that felt like conversations rather than advertisements. The press started picking up on the unique approach. Fashion magazines requested interviews, wanting to discuss the intersection of fashion, friendship, and healing. Each article highlighted how different this launch felt from typical fashion events. One journalist wrote, "In an industry obsessed with transformation, Chen's collection celebrates preservation of self. These aren't clothes designed to change you, but to cherish who you are." The morning of the final fitting session, I arrived early to the studio. The sun was just rising, casting long shadows across the floor. I walked among the clothes, touching each piece, remembering the story that inspired it. There was the emerald green dress, created for the woman who wrote about losing her best friend to fitness obsession. The structured jumpsuit inspired by a teenager learning to stand tall despite her friend's criticism. The flowing evening gown designed while processing my own journey of healing. Sarah found me there, lost in thought. "The models are arriving soon," she said softly. "Are you ready?" I nodded, straightening my shoulders. Our models weren't professionals, but members of our community who had volunteered to be part of this moment. Women who had shared their stories on our blog, who understood what these clothes represented. The fitting session became more than just a technical necessity. As each woman tried on their assigned pieces, they shared what the designs meant to them. There were tears, hugs, and moments of pure joy as they saw themselves reflected in the mirrors. One woman, wearing the emerald dress, turned to me with tears in her eyes. "This is the first time I've felt beautiful in formal wear," she said. "Usually I just feel like I'm trying to hide." Another, in the structured jumpsuit, stood taller than I had ever seen her. "My ex-best friend used to tell me to minimize myself," she shared. "This makes me want to take up space." Jenny documented everything, understanding the importance of capturing these genuine reactions. "This is what real content looks like," she she whispered to me. Not manufactured transformation posts, but authentic moments of self-love. The launch venue transformed under Sarah's direction. Instead of traditional runway seating, we created intimate gathering spaces. The walls featured quotes from our blog community, their words intertwined with the design sketches that they had inspired. Dr. Rodriguez visited during the final preparations. "How are you feeling about all this?" she asked, watching me adjust a display. "Nervous," I admitted, "but not in the way I used to be. This feels like stepping into something bigger than myself." She smiled, understanding. "You've turned your pain into purpose. That's no small achievement." The night before the launch, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my home office, reviewing the speech I had prepared. The words felt inadequate to express everything this collection represented. Jenny called, sensing my anxiety. "Remember when we were kids," she said, "and you used to put on fashion shows with your dolls? You would dress them all differently, but make sure each one felt special." The memory made me smile. "I used to give them all backstories." "You're still doing that," she pointed out, "just on a bigger scale now." She was right. Each piece in this collection had its own backstory, its own purpose. They weren't just clothes, but armor for women fighting their own battles with self-worth and friendship betrayal. The morning of the launch arrived with a soft rain that made the city glisten. I stood in my bathroom, getting ready, when a notification popped up on my phone. Kelsey had posted about the launch. My finger hovered over the notification. Old habits dying hard. But instead of opening it, I turned off my phone. Whatever narrative she was trying to create didn't matter anymore. This was my story to tell. Sarah arrived early, carrying coffee and a garment bag containing my outfit for the event. She had become more than an assistant through all this, becoming a friend who understood the importance of what we were creating. "The press is already lining up," she reported, "and you should see the crowd gathering. They're all wearing clothes from your blog recommendations." The venue thrummed with excitement as I arrived through the back entrance. Music played softly, not the typical fashion show beats, but songs about empowerment and self-love. The air smelled of flowers and possibility. Our models gathered in the preparation area, supporting each other through nervous jitters. They weren't walking a traditional runway, but would instead mingle with guests, sharing the stories behind their outfits. "Remember," I told them during our final meeting, "you're not here to perform. You're here to be yourselves. That's more powerful than any catwalk strut." They nodded, understanding. These women had been part of our blog community, had shared their stories of friendship and betrayal, had helped create the very essence of this collection. The doors opened, and guests began to arrive. Fashion industry veterans mixed with blog followers, all here to witness something different from the usual launch event. I watched from a quiet corner as people explored the space, reading the stories on the walls, touching the fabrics with reverence, engaging in genuine conversations about fashion and self-worth. Jenny found me there, camera in hand. "Ready?" she asked softly. I took a deep breath, straightening my custom-designed jacket. Ready. This wasn't just a fashion line launch anymore. It was a declaration of independence from every toxic message about transformation and worth. It was proof that sometimes the most beautiful things grow from the deepest wounds. The time had come to tell my story, not through social media posts or viral videos, but through the universal language of fashion. Each stitch, each seam, each carefully chosen fabric carried a message of resilience and self-love. I stepped forward, ready to share that message with the world. The email arrived 3 days after the fashion line launch. Sarah forwarded it to me with a single question mark, knowing I would recognize the sender immediately. "Kelsey Martinez." Subject: "Can we talk?" The message was long, filled with carefully crafted phrases about growth and reflection. Kelsey wrote about watching the success of my launch online, about seeing the impact my designs were having on women. She claimed the experience had opened her eyes to the damage she had caused. "I never meant to hurt you," she wrote. "I was so focused on my own transformation that I forgot what really matters. Seeing you succeed, seeing how you've helped others, made me realize how wrong I was. Can we meet? I want to make things right." I stared at the screen, feeling an old familiar ache in my chest. 3 years ago, this email would have meant everything to me. I would have rushed to accept her apology, desperate to reclaim our friendship. Sarah called moments after I finished reading. Her latest Instagram post is about the email, she reported. She shared a screenshot with a long caption about redemption and second chances. Of course she had. Even her attempt at making amends had become content for her platform. Jenny arrived at my office an hour later with coffee and her typical straightforward advice. "She saw your success and wants to be part of the story. That's all this is." I showed her the email. Jenny read it carefully, her expression growing darker with each paragraph. "Look at how she phrases everything. She's not sorry for what she did. She's sorry you succeeded despite what she did." Reading it again, I saw what Jenny meant. Kelsey's words focused on my success, on how seeing my achievements had affected her. There was no real acknowledgement of the years of pain she had caused, the friendship she had destroyed for content. Dr. Rodriguez helped me process my feelings during our next session. "What do you want to do about this?" she asked. "Not what you think you should do, but what do you want?" I considered the question carefully. I want to acknowledge receipt of her email, to be polite but firm, but I don't want to meet with her. Why not? Because I don't trust that this is real growth. She's already turned her apology into social media content. Any meeting we have would become more material for her platform. Dr. Rodriguez nodded. "That sounds like a healthy boundary. How does it feel to make that decision?" "Sad," I admitted, "but also relieving. Like I'm finally choosing myself over the hope of reconciliation." I drafted a brief, professional response. "Thank you for your email. I appreciate your reflections, but I am not interested in meeting at this time. I wish you well in your continued growth." Sarah helped me word it carefully, ensuring nothing could be twisted or taken out of context. We knew Kelsey would likely share my response on her platforms, trying to shape the narrative. Sure enough, within hours of sending my reply, Kelsey had posted a tearful video about rejection and forgiveness. Her followers flooded her comments with support, calling me cruel for not accepting her apology. But this time, the comments didn't affect me the way they once would have. I had learned to recognize the performance in her pain, the way she turned every interaction into content for consumption. Jenny came over that evening, bringing takeout and understanding. "You know what real growth looks like?" she said, passing me a container. "It looks like accepting someone's right to maintain boundaries. It doesn't look like performing your apology for social media engagement." She was right. Real growth would have meant respecting my privacy, sending an apology without turning it into content. Real remorse would have prioritized healing over likes and shares. Lisa messaged me after seeing Kelsey's posts. "Remember when we were kids?" she wrote. "How she would always make sure she was the star of every story. Some things never change." The next day, Kelsey posted again, this time sharing old photos of us from high school. Her caption spoke about missing simpler times, about wishing she could turn back the clock. Her followers ate it up, praising her vulnerability and urging me to reconsider. Sarah offered to block Kelsey's accounts from all our platforms. "We don't need to watch this performance," she said gently, but I decided against it. Blocking her would only feed into her narrative of victimhood. Instead, I chose to continue focusing on my work, on the real connections we were building through the fashion line and blog. Dr. Rodriguez supported this decision during our next session. "You're choosing not to engage with her content while also not hiding from it. That shows real strength." The strength came from understanding that Kelsey's actions said more about her than about me. Her need to turn our history, my boundaries, even her own apology into content, revealed how little had actually changed. A week after her initial email, Kelsey posted a long blog entry titled, "When Friendship Requires Growth." She wrote about watching my fashion line launch, about realizing how her wellness journey had damaged our relationship. But even this realization became part of her brand narrative, another chapter in her ongoing transformation story. Jenny read the blog post, with me pointing out every carefully crafted phrase designed to generate engagement. "Notice how she still centers herself, even when talking about hurting you. She makes it about her growth, her journey." The observation helped me understand why reconciliation felt impossible. Kelsey wasn't reaching out because she missed our friendship. She was reaching out because my success had created an opportunity for content. I channeled these realizations into my work, designing a new piece for the collection. A sophisticated dress with subtle armor-like details, created for women learning to protect their peace from those who would turn their pain into performance. Sarah noticed the shift in my design process. "This feels different," she said, watching me sketch. "More confident." She was right. Each decision to maintain my boundaries, to prioritize genuine healing over performative reconciliation, made me stronger, more certain of who I was and what I wanted to create. Kelsey continued posting about our situation, each message designed to pressure me into responding. But with each post, I became more convinced that maintaining distance was the right choice. Dr. Rodriguez helped me understand that choosing not to reconcile didn't mean I was unforgiving. "Forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation," she explained. "You can wish her well while still protecting your peace." This understanding freed me to focus on what really mattered, creating spaces where women could feel safe, valued, and understood, where friendship meant genuine connection, not content creation. One morning, I received a message from a young follower that confirmed I had made the right choice. "Thank you for showing me that it's okay to set boundaries with friends who use you for content," she wrote. I finally unfollowed my former best friend who kept using our photos for her transformation posts. That message meant more than any viral post or industry accolade. It proved that by choosing my own healing over performing reconciliation, I was helping others make the same choice. Kelsey's attempts at connection gradually became less frequent, though she still occasionally posted about our situation when she needed engagement. But her posts no longer had the power to hurt me. I had learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from a friendship that only exists as content for someone else's platform. That true growth means accepting that not every relationship deserves resurrection. My response to her email became the last direct communication between us. Any other message would have just become material for her content, another performance for her followers to consume. Instead, I let my work speak for itself. Each design, each blog post, each genuine connection with our community showed what real friendship and support could look like. In choosing not to engage with Kelsey's attempts at reconciliation, I had finally freed myself from being content in someone else's transformation story. I had become the author of my own narrative. I recognized her the moment she walked into the fashion line launch. Even with hundreds of guests filling the venue, Kelsey's presence sent an immediate ripple through the crowd. She wore one of her signature fitness influencer outfits, clearly chosen to emphasize her transformed body. Sarah materialized at my side instantly. Security can remove her, she whispered. Just say the word. But I shook my head, watching as Kelsey made her way through the crowd. She had brought her phone, of course, already filming herself walking through the venue. Every step was content creation, every moment a potential post. Jenny appeared on my other side, camera ready, but not for the reasons Kelsey might think. I'm documenting everything, she assured me. If she tries anything, we'll have proof. The launch was in full swing. Models wearing my designs mingled with guests, sharing the stories behind each piece. The walls displayed quotes from our blog community, their words intertwined with the sketches they had inspired. Everything about the space celebrated authenticity and genuine connection. Kelsey's presence felt like an intrusion from another world, one where every interaction had to be performed for an audience. She moved through the crowd filming, her phone capturing reactions to my success that would undoubtedly become content for her platform. I stayed where I was, continuing my conversation with a magazine editor about the inspiration behind the collection. I could see Kelsey approaching in my peripheral vision, her phone still raised, recording everything. Maya, she called out, her voice carrying across the space. Your collection is amazing. I had to come support you. The editor excused herself tactfully as Kelsey reached us. Up close, I could see the careful application of makeup designed to look natural on camera, the practiced smile that never quite reached her eyes. You weren't invited, I said quietly, aware of the phone still recording. This is a private event. I know, but I've been trying to reach you, to make things right. When I saw the success of your launch, I realized how much I missed our friendship. Every word was performed for her followers, each gesture calculated for maximum engagement. Even this moment, which should have been about my achievement, was being turned into content for her platform. Sarah stepped forward. Ms. Martinez, this is a private event. If you continue filming without consent, we'll have to ask security to escort you out. Kelsey lowered her phone slightly, but didn't turn it off. I just want to talk to my old friend, to celebrate her success. Is that so wrong? What's wrong is turning this moment into, content without permission, Jenny said, her own camera capturing Kelsey's intrusion. Just like you did at the reunion. The mention of the reunion made Kelsey flinch, but she recovered quickly. I've apologized for that. I've grown, changed. Maya, please just give me a chance to prove it. Around us, guests had grown quiet, watching the scene unfold. I could feel the weight of their attention, the expectation of drama. But I wasn't going to give Kelsey what she wanted. Instead, I turned to address the entire room. Thank you all for being here tonight. This collection is about more than fashion. It's about choosing authenticity over performance, about valuing genuine connection over content creation. My voice grew stronger as I continued. Every piece tells a story of healing, of learning to love yourself even when others try to shame you into changing, of finding strength in exactly who you are. Kelsey kept her phone raised, but I could see uncertainty creeping into her expression. This wasn't the confrontation she had come to film. I learned these lessons the hard way, I said, meeting her eyes directly. Through friendships that became content, through private moments turned into public spectacle, through betrayals performed for likes and shares. The room remained silent, every person understanding the weight of this moment. Kelsey's phone had begun to shake slightly in her hand, but those lessons led me here, to creating clothes that celebrate rather than shame, to building a community based on genuine support rather than transformation content, to choosing myself over performing relationships for social media. I gestured to the designs surrounding us, each one representing a story of resilience and self-acceptance. This collection is for everyone who has ever been made to feel less than worthy, who has had their story stolen and twisted into someone else's content, who has learned that true friendship builds you up instead of tearing you down to create a better version. Kelsey lowered her phone finally, her carefully constructed facade cracking. Maya, please, I just want my friend back. No, what you want is content. Every apology email becomes a post. Every attempt at connection becomes a video. Even this moment, which should be about celebrating these designs and the women who inspired them, you're trying to turn into material for your platform. The truth of my words hung in the air between us. Around the room, people nodded in recognition, some wiping away tears. I don't want to be content anymore, I said firmly. I don't want our friendship to be material for your transformation story. These designs, this space, this community, they're about something real, something that can't be filtered or edited or performed for likes. Security had arrived, standing quietly at the ready, but they weren't needed. Kelsey looked around the room, at the genuine connections being formed, at the women proudly wearing designs that celebrated their bodies, at the community she could never truly be part of while seeing everything as potential content. Without another word, she turned and walked out. Her exit would undoubtedly become another post, another performance of growth and reflection for her followers. But it didn't matter anymore. I returned my attention to the launch, to the women sharing their stories, to the genuine celebrations of self-acceptance and friendship. This was what mattered. This was real. Jenny hugged me tightly. That was better than any rehearsed speech could have been. She was right. Every word had come from a place of truth, from years of learning to value authenticity over performance, from finally understanding that some friendships aren't meant to be salvaged, especially when they only exist as content for someone else's platform. The rest of the launch was a blur of genuine connections and celebrations. Women tried on clothes that made them feel seen and valued. Stories were shared without filters or performances. Real friendships were formed based on mutual support rather than social media engagement. Later that night, after the last guest had left and the venue grew quiet, I sat among my designs. Each piece represented a step in my journey from being someone else's content to becoming the author of my own story. Sarah showed me Kelsey's latest post, a carefully crafted message about growth and acceptance. But the words felt hollow now, empty performances for an audience that would never know the real story. The real story was here, in this room, in the designs that celebrated rather than shamed, in the community we had built based on genuine connection, in the strength I had found by choosing authenticity over reconciliation. I had finally stopped being content in someone else's transformation story. Instead, I had created something real, something meaningful, something that couldn't be reduced to likes or shares or viral moments. This was my story now, and it was better than any content Kelsey could create. The morning after the fashion line launch, I woke up to an avalanche of notifications, not from Kelsey's followers or drama seekers, but from women around the world who had witnessed or heard about what happened at the launch. Their messages weren't about the confrontation, but about the clothes, the community, the celebration of authenticity. Sarah had already compiled a preliminary report. The collection had sold out online within hours. Major retailers were calling to place orders. Fashion magazines wanted exclusive interviews. But more importantly, women were sharing their stories of wearing the designs, of feeling seen and celebrated. One message particularly stood out. A young woman wrote about wearing our emerald green dress to confront her own former best friend who had been using their old photos for transformation content. Your designs gave me the courage to stand up for myself, she wrote, to say no to being someone else's before photo. Jenny arrived with breakfast and industry news. You're trending, she said, setting down coffee and pastries, but not for the drama. People are talking about the speech you gave, about choosing authenticity over performance. The venue had sent over photos from the launch, images of women, of all sizes trying on clothes that celebrated their bodies, of genuine connections being formed, of real moments that weren't performed for social media. Even the confrontation with Kelsey had been transformed in the retelling. Women weren't focusing on the drama, but on the message, on choosing authenticity over content creation, on valuing real connections over social media performance. Lisa called to share reactions from our hometown. People who were at the reunion are sharing their stories now, she said, about how Kelsey used to film people without consent, how she turned every interaction into content. You've given them permission to speak up. The fashion industry response was overwhelming. Buyers praised the collection's authentic representation. Critics wrote about the intersection of fashion and female friendship. Industry leaders wanted to discuss changing beauty standards and social media's impact on women's relationships. Sarah organized the press requests, prioritizing publications that understood what we were trying to create. Not just clothes, but a movement, a community based on genuine support rather than transformation narratives. The first interview was with a fashion magazine known for its thoughtful coverage of body positivity. The journalist asked about the inspiration behind the collection, about turning pain into purpose, about choosing celebration over transformation. These designs aren't about becoming someone else, I explained. They're about celebrating who you already are, about finding strength in authenticity rather than performance. We did a photo shoot featuring women from our blog community wearing the collection. No filters, no excessive editing, just genuine moments of joy and self-acceptance. The images went viral, not because of controversy, but because of their authenticity. Orders continued pouring in. Retailers wanted to know when we could produce more, but I insisted on maintaining our ethical production standards, on ensuring each piece was made with the same care and intention as the original collection. The studio became a hub of activity. Design teams worked on expanding the line while maintaining its core message. Production teams ensured quality control. Marketing focused on authentic representation rather than traditional fashion advertising. Jenny documented everything, capturing the real moments behind the success. Women trying on clothes that made them feel beautiful, genuine tears of joy, friendships being formed over shared experiences of healing and self-acceptance. Dr. Rodriguez helped me process the overwhelming response during our sessions. You've created something meaningful, she said, something that goes beyond fashion or social media metrics. She was right. The collection had become a symbol of choosing authenticity over performance, of valuing real connections over content creation. Each sale represented another woman choosing to celebrate herself exactly as she was. The blog community grew exponentially, but the connections remained genuine. Women shared their stories of friendship betrayals, of learning to love themselves, of finding strength in authenticity. Each post generated thoughtful discussions rather than performative responses. Sarah implemented strict guidelines for our social media presence. No filters on product photos, no before and after comparisons, no transformation narratives, just real women wearing clothes that celebrated their bodies. The success translated into expansion opportunities. Retailers wanted exclusive collections. Fashion weeks requested shows. Magazines wanted cover features. But with each opportunity, we maintained our commitment to authenticity over performance. New designs were created based on community feedback. A suit for the woman who refused to shrink herself. A dress for celebrating friendship that builds you up. Each piece told a story of choosing real connection over social media validation. Lisa organized a local fashion show featuring women from our hometown. The event became a celebration of authentic friendship and self-acceptance. Women who had been featured in transformation posts without consent reclaimed their stories through our designs. The studio expanded to accommodate growing demand. More seamstresses were hired, each trained in our ethical production methods. Quality control remained paramount, ensuring each piece carried the same message of celebration and authenticity. Jenny captured behind-the-scenes moments for our blog, not carefully staged content, but real interactions. Design meetings where women shared their stories, fittings where tears of joy were genuine, celebrations that weren't performed for social media. The fashion industry took notice of our different approach. Articles discussed the shift from transformation narratives to celebration. Critics praised the authenticity of our marketing. Industry leaders wanted to discuss changing the way fashion interacts with social media. Orders continued exceeding production capacity, but we refused to compromise quality for quantity. Each piece was created with intention, carrying the message that had started this journey, choosing authenticity over performance. Sarah managed the growing team while maintaining our core values. No content was created without consent. No stories were shared without permission. Every Every interaction prioritized genuine connection over social media metrics. The collection's success proved that fashion could celebrate rather than shame, that clothes could be armor for women fighting their own battles with self-worth, that authenticity could be more powerful than any carefully curated social media presence. Dr. Rodriguez noted the change in our sessions. "You're not just healing yourself anymore," she observed. "You're helping others heal too." The studio became more than a workplace. It became a sanctuary for women reclaiming their stories, a space where authenticity was valued over performance, where real connections were formed without the need for social media validation. Jenny documented the transformation, not through carefully filtered photos, but through genuine moments. Women supporting each other, friendships being formed, joy that wasn't performed for likes or shares. The success wasn't measured in social media metrics, but in real impact, in women choosing to celebrate themselves, in friendships based on genuine support rather than content creation, in a community that valued authenticity over performance. This was what real success looked like. Not viral moments or carefully curated content, but genuine connections, real celebrations, authentic joy that didn't need to be performed for an audience. The collection had become more than clothes. It had become a movement, a statement about choosing authenticity over performance, about valuing real connections over social media validation, about celebrating exactly who you are rather than who others think you should become. 1 year after the fashion line launch, I found myself standing in front of a classroom full of aspiring designers at the local fashion institute. The students looked at me with a mixture of admiration and curiosity, their sketchbooks open and ready. "Design isn't just about making clothes," I told them, gesturing to the rack of samples from my collection. "It's about creating armor for people fighting their own battles, about turning pain into purpose, about choosing celebration over transformation." A young woman in the front row raised her hand. "What inspired you to focus on authentic representation rather than traditional fashion marketing?" I picked up the emerald green dress that had become one of our signature pieces. This dress was inspired by a woman who lost her best friend to fitness obsession. She needed something that celebrated her body exactly as it was, not as others thought it should be. The students scribbled notes, genuinely engaged. I moved through the collection, sharing the story behind each piece. The structured blazer designed for taking up space, the flowing evening gown created during my own healing journey. Sarah had organized these teaching sessions as part of our mentorship program. Every month, we worked with young designers who wanted to create clothes that celebrated rather than shamed. That built people up instead of trying to transform them. Between classes, I reviewed applications for our design internship program. We specifically sought out students who understood the intersection of fashion and self-worth, who wanted to create clothes that made people feel seen and valued. Jenny documented these sessions for our blog, capturing genuine moments of connection and learning. Not carefully staged photos or rehearsed interactions, but real exchanges between designers who understood the power of authentic representation. The studio had evolved into a creative hub where young designers could learn and grow, where they could understand the importance of ethical production and genuine representation, where they could create clothes that celebrated bodies rather than trying to change them. One intern, a quiet girl named Maria, showed me her sketches for a collection inspired by her own journey of self-acceptance. "My best friend became a fitness influencer," she explained. "She uses our old photos as before images without asking. I want to create clothes that make people feel worthy exactly as they are." I recognized the pain in her voice, the same pain that had driven me to create my collection. "Your designs can be more than clothes," I told her. "They can be statements about choosing authenticity over performance, about valuing real connections over social media validation." Sarah helped organize showcase events where our interns could present their designs to the community, not traditional fashion shows with impossible beauty standards, but celebrations of authentic creativity and genuine representation. Lisa attended one of these showcases, bringing students from her body positivity workshop. "You're creating more than just designers," she observed. "You're creating advocates for authentic representation in fashion." The impact spread beyond our local community. Fashion schools began incorporating our approach into their curricula. Industry leaders consulted us about changing beauty standards and ethical production methods. Magazines wanted to feature our mentorship program. Dr. Rodriguez visited the studio to see the program in action. "This is what healing looks like," she said, watching students work on designs that celebrated rather than shamed, taking your experience and using it to help others find their voice. Jenny captured the evolution of our mentorship program, documenting the genuine moments of connection celebration and growth. Students learning to create clothes that made people feel worthy. Designers understanding the power of authentic representation. The studio became more than a workplace or teaching space. It became a sanctuary where young designers could explore their creativity without the pressure of traditional fashion industry standards, where they could create clothes that celebrated bodies rather than trying to change them. Maria's first collection debuted at our student showcase. Her designs told stories of friendship, betrayal, and self-acceptance, of choosing authenticity over performance, of creating clothes that made people feel seen and valued. The audience response was overwhelming. Women crying as they tried on clothes that celebrated their bodies, young designers finding their voice through authentic representation, a community coming together to support genuine creativity. Sarah organized meetings with retailers interested in carrying our students' designs, but we maintained our commitment to ethical production and authentic representation. No compromises on quality or message for the sake of profit. The mentorship program expanded to include workshops on ethical production methods and authentic marketing. Students learned not just design techniques, but the importance of creating clothes with intention and purpose. Jenny documented the success stories. Graduates launching their own ethical fashion lines. Students creating clothes that celebrated diversity. Designers choosing authentic representation over traditional beauty standards. The fashion industry took notice of our different approach to education. Articles discussed the shift from transformation narratives to celebration in design schools. Critics praised our focus on authentic representation and ethical production. Dr. Rodriguez helped me process the impact of the program during our sessions. You've created a space where healing can multiply, she observed, where designers learn to use their creativity for genuine celebration rather than transformation. The studio walls filled with sketches and designs from our students, each piece telling a story of choosing authenticity over performance, of creating clothes that celebrated bodies exactly as they were. Maria graduated from the program and launched her own collection. Her designs carried the same message we had taught her, that fashion could be a tool for celebration rather than shame, that clothes could help people reclaim their stories from those who tried to turn them into content. The success of our mentorship program wasn't measured in sales figures or social media metrics. It was measured in the genuine impact our graduates had on the fashion industry, in the clothes they created that made people feel worthy, in the authentic representation they brought to their designs. This was what real success looked like. Not viral moments or carefully curated content, but genuine change in how fashion approached body diversity and authentic representation. A new generation of designers who understood that clothes could be armor for people fighting their own battles with self-worth. The studio remained a space where authenticity was valued over performance, where young designers learned to create clothes that celebrated rather than shamed, where genuine creativity could flourish without the pressure of social media validation. This was my legacy, not just a successful fashion line or viral moments, but a movement toward authentic representation in fashion, a community of designers who understood the power of creating clothes that celebrated people exactly as they were. The future of fashion looked different now. It looked like celebration instead of transformation, like authentic representation instead of impossible standards, like designers who understood that their creativity could be a force for genuine change. And in teaching others to choose authenticity over performance, I had finally found my own path to healing, my own way of turning pain into purpose, my own celebration of exactly who I was meant to be.